Hi, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Dave, and we're the IB English guys, and today we're going to talk about drama. We're going to talk about theater. We're going to look at an excerpt from an excellent play by a Chilean poet named Ariel Dorfman. We're going to talk about dramatic elements and really how to read a dramatic excerpt.
Yeah, our preview for today is as follows. First, we're going to go over 10 key features and terms that we see frequently in drama and explain those. After that, we're going to go ahead and look at a passage from the beginning of Death in the Maiden, and then we're going to find examples of those 10 features and show you how those work and discuss a little bit about those effects.
Yeah, this is going to be a great chance for us to really talk about drama. This is applicable for the individual oral. It's applicable for the paper one, but it's also just applicable for just appreciating great theater.
It's a great play. We've actually seen this play together here in Thailand. It was fantastic.
Yeah,
Giles, what do you say we dig into these 10 elements of drama?
Yeah, and I want to point out there's a glossary down below with many more than 10 features of drama. These are just 10 features that we think are really dominant and really powerful to talk about. The first one is stage directions, and the stage directions are, again, the directions that the playwright is putting in there to describe lots of different elements that are in what we see and what we hear.
Yeah, and when we think about the stage directions, one of the things that we see frequently are stage directions about setting. Of course, that talks about the time and the place. Typically, you'll hear information about what time of day it is, what time of year it is it a particular season? All of that is critical and it helps develop the setting, time and place.
Yeah, that's great. In addition, we also see in the stage directions, and what we think about is the set. And when we talk about the set, this is what we see on stage. This is, again, the background, all the different maybe furniture and things that we see.
Maybe how many rooms are there.
Yeah, this is part of the set. And the set is, again, can be very elaborate or it can be very minimal. Again, this is very important to talk about.
Yeah, and once you have the set and setting established, Mr. Giles, it's time to throw in some characters, right? And when we think about characters, we want to think about an acronym I quite enjoy called STEAL. And I like to consider, what do characters say? What do characters think? What is their effect on others? What are their actions and what are their looks? STEAL. Nice acronym that really helps develop characterization.
Oh, well done. Well done.
Thank you.
Of course, we can talk about the plot. When we look at drama, we think about the plot. You've probably studied the story mountain, where you look at the exposition, and then the rising action, and the climax, and then falling action and resolution. So we want to think about how the plot develops in a piece of drama.
Yeah, and a lot of the plot development actually comes from the dialogue. And of course, it's a play. We have characters on stage, and they're speaking to each other, Mr. Giles. Are they speaking with an agitated tone? Are they kind and polite? Is there aposiopesis, I believe it's called, when one character interrupts another character before they finish the sentence, right?
Yeah, and dialogue's always really fun to look at and really examine and talk about, and all the different elements that are in the dialogue. Now we want to think about other things that are in plays. We look at props. We look at any kind of objects and props that are used, and we might want to think about the symbolic importance of those props and how they're
Yeah, think about what are the concrete nouns that you see. Those are usually excellent props. Because it's a play, we also have sound, Mr. Giles, and we might want to think about what are some of those noises we hear. Think about the tone of the character's voice. Do we hear music? Maybe Death in the Maiden, the song is playing in the background. What do we hear? Sounds are very important in drama.
Yeah, that's great. And again, another thing that creates a lot of atmosphere is lighting. And lighting is so fun. I think that would be a great job to be part of this, the lighting crew on a theater set. But again, lighting can do lots of things that have great intention. We want to think about how that creates a mood, how that creates atmosphere, and so we can talk about that.
Yeah, I believe that actually is our last element to discuss today, Mr. Giles, is the mood and the atmosphere. Students, basically you're taking all of these elements, the set, the setting, the characters, the props, the sound, the lights, and you're thinking to yourself, what kind of atmosphere, mood is established through these dramatic features combined together?
Okay, so we're going to look at a play called Death and the Maiden by Ariel Dorfman. It's an excellent play. It was written in 1990. This play principally is about a woman who has been a victim of abuse and torture and sexual abuse while she was a political prisoner 17 years in the past. And now she's living in a beach house with her husband, and she's been really tormented. And he brings home a good Samaritan, a man that helps him out, and she suspects that he's her torturer. and she decides to put that suspected torturer on trial.
Yeah, it's a highly provocative play, very engaging, very tense, and this is the opening, I believe. This is Act 1, Scene 1, the opening of the play that we're going to look at today.
Yeah, so we're going to quickly think about these 10 elements of drama, and we're going to talk about these 10 elements of drama in relation to this particular excerpt. This might be a good time for you to pause the video and read the excerpt that we have linked below before we talk about it.
Okay, Mr. Giles, I think the first thing we mentioned before was the stage directions. And right away when we look at the excerpt, I can see quite a bit of italicized language. And this is typical of stage directions. The language is italicized, characters' names are in all caps. And typically this is where the information can be found. There's a big brick of text at the top. And as you go through, you see the stage directions written in italics, oftentimes in parentheses.
Yeah,
those are your stage directions.
That's right. And they're really fun there. I think that you can do a lot with those stage directions that talk about that. Now we want to think about setting. So this particular excerpt, the setting is described as a beach house by the oceans, and it's midnight. So I want to think about the time of day and the significance of that, and how that creates a sense of unease. But we also have this sense of the beach house being very isolated. So there's a clear establishment of the setting.
Yeah, and then when we think about the setting, we want to think about the set itself, Mr. Giles. You know, how is the set set up? And here I see, okay, there's a terrace, it's a beach house, as you said. I can see a living room, a dining room. I can see dinner on the table. There's chairs, there's lamps. I have a really good idea. Dorfman has told the director how he wants the set established and how he wants things positioned on the actual stage. That's a pretty clear set, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's right. Then we have characters. There's two characters in this particular scene that we've chosen. We have Paulina is the first character that we see, and she's described in the stage directions before she even speaks. It's interesting because we see that she's anxious. And at the beginning, she's drinking in the light of the moon. And when you're drinking in the light of the moon, that's characterization. We see that she's pensive and reflective, but she's also quite anxious because she's grabbing the gun and hiding behind the curtains. So this is all part of her characterization. Then we see the characterization of her husband, Gerardo, who's coming in from the outside, and the significance of how he speaks to his wife is quite interesting that comes up. So we see his characterization being very kind of apologetic, and also being kind of caring about her condition and what's happening to her because she's been very worried.
Nice, Mr. Giles. Now, we've talked about the characters a little bit. I think it's time to think about where are we in the narrative structure of the play.
Great.
Obviously, this is plot. We're in Act 1, Scene 1, and typically you'd expect that to be the exposition. That's where you're introduced to characters, you're introduced to the setting, and you're kind of working to that initial conflict that propels the story forward. So obviously Act 1, Scene 1, we are in the exposition stage of the plot.
Yeah, and we learn about their marriage and their relationship, and we can make some inferences about their relationship, and there is some tension, there is some sort of subtle accusations that are going on.
Yeah,
there.
How does that come out in the dialogue, Mr. Giles, those subtle accusations and that tension?
Yeah, a couple of things. Like, I noticed in the dialogue that a lot of times Gerardo, he doesn't finish his sentences, and he has these sort of unfinished sentences, and there's a fancy term for unfinished sentences called aposiopesis. With this play, the Dorfman frequently uses these in dialogue, and this is the way people naturally speak. We don't always finish our sentences perfectly, but also it just shows that there's some unspoken things in their dialogue that we might want to talk about.
Yeah, and again, Dorfman's very careful to build that aposiopesis into his script. It really shows the tension, the hesitation of Paulina, and sort of the way Gerardo looks down on his wife. It's all clear through the dialogue.
Yeah, I think also her questions are very important. Like, where have you been? Who was that? These kind of use of questions in the dialogue help to show that there's some accusation and maybe some suspicions that she doesn't exactly trust Gerardo, and maybe that could stem from things in the past. So there's lots in the dialogue that we can kind of examine and talk about. Those are just a few things.
Well, oftentimes, Mr. Giles, what they're talking about, they're sort of talking about things and bringing in the props into the play, and that's how they get involved, right? So in this passage, we see some really clear concrete nouns that are symbols. We see cassette recorders. We see a gun. And we know these two concrete nouns play a pivotal role in this play. They're very important symbols. So you want to think about what concrete nouns, what objects could possibly symbolize a greater idea within the play.
A gun is an obvious symbol of violence, and a cassette recorder is a symbol of sort of memory and recording things. The other prop is that nail that he pulls
out.
out.
I forgot about the nail, Giles.
Yeah. So it's interesting that these things that are used very importantly. We also see sound used in this particular excerpt a few times. We see here the sound of the faraway car. And again, that's sort of the mysterious sound that creates. That is some threatening force that might be coming into her lonely beach house. You can think about how you might feel with a car approaching at the middle of the night, but also we hear the sound of the ocean. These things are all creating a good atmosphere. I like these sounds.
Yeah, I like them too. And of course, when you talk about sound, Mr. Giles, you can't forget the cousin, light. And in this case, Dorfman's very precise. We see references like the light is blasting on Paulina. Paulina is drinking in the light of the moon. There's light sweeping across the room again. So Dorfman's playing with this light-dark idea and really trying to use that to accentuate Paulina's character and her tension.
That's great. And then notice that when Gerardo comes home, he flips all the lights on. So he wants to kind of bring the lights up. She's cowering in the dark, and then he's kind of like, hey, let's turn the lights on. That's an interesting thing.
Well, I'll tell you what, Mr. Giles, let's finish by talking about the overall mood and atmosphere that's created by all of these elements combined together. What could you say about, the dramatic features, how they work together to create atmosphere?
Oh, that's great. Because all these things tie in very well. To me, it's a very uneasy beginning. It's very anxious and uneasy. We get a sense of tension. We get a sense of anxiety as, in the middle of the night, this car's approaching and Paulina's characterization. But we also have tension in their relationship that we see in the dialogue.
Yeah, there's hiding behind curtains. There's the muffled sound of Gerardo to kind of imply that maybe he hides things or he's somewhat deceptive sometimes with his wife. There's so much layered in that opening scene that really does come out later in the play, Mr. Giles.
Yeah, that's great. So it's got some good foreshadowing of things to come. So it really makes to me, good theater wants to hook you right away. And this scene does hook me right away. It makes me want to really read on or sit in the theater and finish the play.
Yeah, folks, in closing, we love this play. This is a play we use with our students, and we really just wanted to go over some of these main conventions and features of drama to make sure you are also paying attention to these when you read plays with your teacher. Once again, we hope this video provides value for you. We hope you can use this in your IB studies. Let us know what you need. Let us know what you want to hear about, and we will make more videos for you. Thanks for watching, everyone, and take care.
Bye, guys.